Hey, everybody, it is Trags, Mike Petralia back with this week's episode of the JungleRoar podcast here on the YouTube network, as well as everywhere you download your favorite podcast. This week, I welcome back Jay Morrison of The Athletic, doing a great job, a phenomenal job covering the Cincinnati Bengals as well as the NFL for The Athletic. Follow him on Twitter at JMorrisonATH, all one word. Welcome back, Jay.
Hey, Trags, how are you?
Good. I had a good bye week. Got a lot of golf in, as I mentioned to James Rapine on WLW on Monday night. I actually took in some basketball, some college basketball,
Nice.
did some college football, UC, Nip at Night on Friday night. I got around. I enjoyed it, was active, but I'm ready for the NFL to return.
I stunned myself and installed a garbage disposal at my daughter's new place that she bought. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it. It said 30 minutes. It was more like an hour and a half, but I got it done and it works. And so that's something.
Did you actually have to turn off the power in the house?
Yeah.
Did you do all of that? And I'm impressed, Jay. That is very, very impressive. For those that don't know, I'm an electrical engineer by discipline, believe it or not, a communications minor from Villanova University. Rough start for our Wildcats, by the way, but that's a different podcast. The Bengals hope to get off to a good start here in the second half of the season, the unofficial second half. Obviously, game number 10 coming up against Pittsburgh Steelers. And game number 1, Jay, everybody recalls what happened. Joe Burrow just really a month off an appendectomy, was back on the maybe 6 weeks off the appendectomy in late July. Came out and turned the ball over 5 times, 4 interceptions and the fumbled snap. It was rough to say the least, but still the Bengals had that chance to win that game multiple times in the fourth quarter, in overtime. We know about what happened with Clark Harris, but in that game, I thought TJ Watt got off to a great start, and that really disrupted the Bengals offense, at least in the first half of that game. They really never got on track until the second half.
Yeah, and he just so happens to be back now. TJ Watt does, as the first game back last week. So LC Collins and the rest of that O-line should be on notice. I mean, that's how Pittsburgh's going to win this game. They're not going to win a shootout with the Bengals. They're going to have to do it with that defense again. And I mean, TJ Watt is at the start of it, and so many people, I think, kind of downplayed the appendectomy. I think it was a big deal, and not just the physical recovery, but all that time he missed. They knew or had a sense of what teams were going to do to them this year, and not letting Jamar beat him over the top and playing the too high. And they just didn't get the practice reps going against that. And Joe Burrow didn't get the recognition reps of what he was seeing. I think it was a bigger deal than people let on. And that's not to make excuses. It's just what it was. Impressive what this team has done. Impressive what Joe Burrow has done since those first 2 losses. You look at every metric you want to look at from week 3 to present. He's top 10, if not top 5 in all of them.
First series of that game, though, somebody who picked him off and played a huge factor in that game will not be playing this Sunday, we presume. He will miss his second game coming off an appendectomy, and that, of course, is Pro Bowl free safety Minkah Fitzpatrick. He will not be in the Steelers back secondary, I should say, along with Akello Witherspoon, the left cornerback. He is expected to probably miss the game as well, at least going to be very much a question mark. Those 2 aren't in there. Those were 2 players who played in week 1. What kind of impact do you think that'll make, especially Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, huge. I have so much respect for him, and I'm not ruling him out yet. I'll believe it's Sunday when I see the inactive list. I wouldn't put it by that guy. We've seen guys come back from appendectomy sooner than Joe did, because Joe had his burst, he had the infection, and it is a much more severe thing. So we'll see. But yeah, you're right. The presumption is that Minkah is not going to play, and that just he's such a big part of that defense. And I don't know what Pittsburgh will do. I would imagine they will play even more conservative. Yes, you don't want to blitz Joe Burrow. He kills the blitz. The way you beat Joe Burrow and the Bengals is to get pressure with your front 4. And I think Pittsburgh can do that. This Bengals offensive line has gotten better, but they're still not there yet. Nobody would say they're great by any stretch of the imagination. And you're talking about TJ Watt back and Highsmith and Cam Hayward. And yeah, they can wreak havoc with that front four, and that makes life a lot easier on whoever. And I'm sorry, I don't have the depth chart here in front of me, but whoever that safety would be that would fill in for Minka if he's out. That's how they're going to win this game, is with that front four. And Minka is such a difference maker when he makes the pick six that you're talking about. You know, what was it, second play of the game, second or first play of the game? I can't remember. You know, the Steelers may not have that, but if they can just keep everything in front of them and force the Bengals to work the way down the field, it's going to be a typical Bengals Steelers game at Heinz Field, I feel, where it's going to be low scoring, it's going to be cold, it's going to be the team that runs the ball better. A lot of people are counting the Steelers out. I think the Bengals win this game. I wouldn't lay the points. I think this is going to be a really tight, really hard fought contest, you know, even if Minka doesn't play.
In that game also, we all remember what happened on the very first snap. That was Cam Hayward, you know,
that's right,
tearing through the Bengals offensive line. And at that point, they were very much a work in progress. What they are now is, I think, a very good, very solid offensive line. I'm not going to say they're spectacular. I'm not going to say they're near perfect. They're not that, but they're certainly solid, much better than they were in week one. And in week one, they had trouble with the Steelers and Cam Hayward right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, talk about your welcome to the NFL moment for Cordell Volson. Yes. That was really him there, getting bulled by Cameron Hayward. And he's exceeded my expectations. I don't know if Frank Pollock would say the same, or Brian Callahan. I think they drafted him for a reason and they expected him to play this well. But you're right, that interior, I mean, most of the issues that they've had have been on the edge. Jonah has had his issues at times. Lael Collins has his issues at times. Alex Kapp has been terrific. Ted Karras has been really good. And like I said, Cordell Volson has been better than I think most people expected. And that's what they had to fix. That's what Joe Burrow is. He feels like he can deal with the edge rushers. He can make that guy miss. That's his responsibility. Right. It's when the pocket gets pushed, when the pressure's up in his face, that's when he struggles. And so I think that has been a big part of why we've seen this team be able to excel despite it's still a lot of sacks. I mean, he's still getting hit and he's still giving up the sacks, but they haven't been the killers like they were last year. And they found something. They got the run game going a little bit. They've got an efficient run game even before the Carolina. They weren't hitting the deep shots early, but now those are starting to come along. They always say it always starts up front with the offensive line, and what they've got from that interior has I think been impressive. If they can get LC and Jonah to catch up, it's going to be a much more comfortable, let's say, second half for Joe Burrow.
I think really, Jay, what was most encouraging about what Joe Mixon did against Carolina right before the break is he got mojo going. And I think kind of there was the message delivered that this team has not A, given up on the run game, and B, given up on Joe Mixon. I think you're right. I think they're going to have more out of Joe Mixon than they even did in week one. And in week one, I went back, looked it up. He had, I believe, like 83 yards on 21 carries. It was a very representative type of performance, right around 4 yards carrying a tote for Joe Mixon in that opening game. I think they're going to need that, maybe just a little bit more from Joe Mixon in a game against the Steelers to try and neutralize, if you will, that Pittsburgh pass rush, don't you think?
Yeah. And I mean, this is on Zach Taylor as much as it is Joe Mixon, because you've got to stick with it. You're not going to do to the Steelers what you did to Carolina. And maybe it is tough sledding in the first quarter, second quarter, but Mixon has proved that we were all talking about, had he lost a step, he didn't look like it against Carolina. It wasn't just the holes were there, yes, but the explosion he showed getting through those. And once he got to the second level, and to know that's still there, you have to stick with it, knowing that one of those can pop at any time. And then you do start feeding off of it. I mean, they feed off of Joe. Joe feeds off of himself. When he's got that energy going, it's just a different offense. And so, yeah, I that is going to be the key is running the ball against this front four, slowing down that pass rush, and just, I mean, taking the pressure off of Joe Burrow, because we know what TJ Watt is, but they've got so much more on that front line that can be a problem. And yeah, I feel like the Bengals offense can do it one way or the other, but if you've got them, if you can do it one way and the other, that's the ideal way to go.
Yes.
Use the pass off of the run. If the run's not there, don't just abandon it and run it 8 times or 10 times like they did against Cleveland. Stick with it, ride it out.
So that leads me neatly, Jay, thank you, into my next question. And that is with Ja'Marr Chase out. And I think personally, and I don't have any inside information on this, but I get the sense they're holding him until Kansas City, the first week in December. I don't think, he's certainly not going to play this week against Pittsburgh. I don't think he's going to make it back against Tennessee. He was still on crutches in the locker room when we saw him on Monday. I think they're hopeful that they get him back for Kansas City and get him back for, the final 6 games of the year. That would be, I think, the Bengals' optimistic perspective of that. But in the meantime, while they're waiting for Ja'Marr Chase to get back as close to 100% as he can be, do you think Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan, the offensive coordinator, are going to lean more on other receivers like Trent Taylor, Trenton Irwin? We've even seen Stanley Morgan, Mike Thomas to pick up the slack, or do you think we're going to see more in the running game as it gets colder? They're going to move a little bit away from the pass game and more to the run game. Even Samaje Perine. Let's not forget Samaje Perine and the role he's played in this offense, I think, has been important. What do you think it's going to be, Jay? Do you think it's going to be more running or more receivers not named Ja'Marr Chase getting into the action?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, going back to what I said, if there's 2 teams that can get pressure on Joe with just the front four, it's Pittsburgh, and then we all saw what Tennessee did with their front four in that playoff game last year. So I think it's going to be about the run game and leaning on that. I'm a big Trenton Irwin fan. I'm a big Trent Taylor fan. I think every time those guys are called on, they make plays, but you're not gonna live throwing those guys the ball. They're nice pieces to mix in there every now and then, but it needs to be a heavier dose of Joe Mixon. And then if the run does totally get shut down and they do abandon it, or if it gets to the point where they have no choice but to abandon it, I don't think you're going to see that, because I don't think the Pittsburgh or Tennessee offense scares you where they're going to all of a sudden run away and force you into playing. But but if something crazy like that does happen, then maybe they do have to start leaning on those other receivers some more. But I mean, there's a lot of teams that would kill for T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. I think that's enough right there to carry this offense, especially when you got a guy like Joe Burrow. And can't forget Hayden Hurst. And as you said, Samaje Perine is so valuable in pass protection. Maybe that's not as big of a deal against Tennessee and Pittsburgh because they're not going to bring a blitzer that often. But yeah, I think if you're talking the more important piece, I think it's going to be Joe Mixon, and if we see Samaje Perine get some more carries too, because I think he's earned it. He's terrific as a receiver out of the backfield, as a pass protector, but he runs the ball really well, and he was running it well when Joe Mixon wasn't, and that's a light comparison. I mean, it's the same offensive line. It's within the same game, and he's running it better than Mixon. I think he's earned a chance to run the ball some more.
Do you think that, now I'm going to switch to the defensive side of the ball, do you think that the Bengals secondary is strong enough to hold up the rest of the year?
Yeah, I don't know. I think the Cheeto injury is far more impactful and concerning than the Ja'Marr injury. And I think I might even say that if Ja'Marr was out for the year. You've got there's better depth on the offensive side, and you've got a guy in Joe Burrow that can put the team on his back and carry him. I don't know that guy exists on defense. They've got a lot of terrific players over there. They've got a lot of leaders. But it's just the kind of the nature of what defense is. It's not, you don't have that one guy that can just kind of carry a defense. And, Trey Flowers was great in his role, but now if he's asked to play outside some more, that didn't go very well in Cleveland. I am encouraged by Cam Taylor-Britt. I think he's played really well for how much time he missed. They obviously were high on him. They took him in the second round. He almost reminds me, this was before you were here, but when Jesse Bates came in as a rookie, second round pick also, like Cam Taylor-Britt, and just had that confidence about him that you don't see from young guys a lot. And Cam Taylor-Britt's got that too. He's not anybody's backup, for lack of a better phrase. He feels like he belongs. He's eager to show it. And you would assume he's only going to get better the more reps he gets, but they are super thin back there. And especially with Dax Hill nursing the shoulder injury right now, we don't know how long he's going to be out. Maybe they can maintain as is, but one more injury back there, it's going to be trouble. And the really interesting one that I didn't mention is Eli Apple, because he's such a wild card. And it really, I don't know if someone in the Bengals organization got to him, but he's really toned it down on Twitter. He's talked more in the locker room. He says all the right things. I think he kind of sees the writing that, he last year was on a 1-year deal. They bring him back on another cheap 1-year deal. If he wants to keep playing this league, he's got to be a team player, for a lack of a better term. You don't want to be out there pissing off other fan bases and other teams. And I am interested to see how he's going to play the rest of the season, because I do see some sort of a pivot in his personality.
Well, as the Bengals face their next 8 games, their gauntlet, as you corrected me off there, their gauntlet of 8 games coming up, it really begins in earnest against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I do believe that the Bengals can get through the next 2 games with just an average to a little bit of above average secondary play, but they're going to have to really pick it up. And that's when I think they're going to need Dax Hill really back, is again for the Kansas City game, kind of like we talked about with Jamar Chase. If you're gonna make sure Dax Hill is 100% or as close to 100% as he's going to be at this time of year, I say save him for Kansas City. And I think that's because there's going to be so many weapons on the field, even without Tyreek Hill there. The Kansas City Chiefs has shown, and Patrick Mahomes has shown that he can spread the ball around, and that offense is as dynamic as ever. And not that I'm previewing Kansas City, 3 weeks ahead of the actual event, but you do have to have an eye toward the future. The Bengals are going to say, Zach Taylor's going to say, and I understand it, it's one game at a time. Our biggest game is Pittsburgh this week. Of course that's true. But when you're Duke Tobin and laying out this roster going forward, you do have to keep that in mind. Yeah,
because I think Pittsburgh and Tennessee are both going to give the Bengals a heavy dose of run. The Steelers have found something in Jaylen Warren. They're mixing him in with Najee Harris. Everybody knows what Derrick Henry is. The Chiefs really have showed no interest in running the ball. They do it every now and then, but they are what they are. And so you're right. I think they can get by without Dax in these next 2 games. And that's another area where Cam Taylor-Britt can really shine, because he is a physical corner and he likes sticking his nose in there and getting dirty in the run game. So even if they're not throwing the ball as much, that's another chance for him to take a step forward. Right. But yeah, Dax, I would agree with you. And that's one of the biggest surprises for me this year. I really thought we were going to see this Swiss Army knife chess piece. I thought we were going to see a whole lot more of Dax Hill. And I don't think that's been some part of a grand plan to save him for later in the year for offenses like Kansas City. But the Cheeto injury and some other circumstances kind of dictate it. And they're going to need him in that game particularly.
Okay, I want to get on to DJ Reader. I wrote this in my Bengals beat for CLNS Media for today, Tuesday, as we record this. And there were 2 times that DJ Reader's absence really stuck out to me. One was against the Baltimore Ravens on the last drive of the game, where Lamar Jackson was able to do whatever he wanted to get down the field, to get in position for the game-winning field goal. The other was at the end of the first half, when the Bengals were already without Cheeto Awuzie when he went out of the game with the injury. it looked like Nick Chubb really took over the game. And in that final 15 yards before their first touchdown, and actually, I believe it was an 11-yard touchdown run, the Bengals just looked like they were eviscerated in the middle of the defensive line. There was nothing there. And then on the 2-point conversion, it was a direct snap to Nick Chubb. And I'm like, if DJ Reader is in the game at those moments, I think he makes a difference. I think he's going to make a difference coming back, assuming everything goes well in practice this week and his left knee tests out fine. I think he's a difference maker, a huge difference maker.
Yeah, literally and figuratively. That Chubb touchdown, I mean, he just slammed it right up the middle and just stuck his helmet into BJ Hill's chest and kind of carried BJ into the end zone. You're right. If DJ Reader's in there, I don't think that's the path that he takes, or maybe even the play call that they make. And the Baltimore game was a little different because it's just, you're in a tough spot there. It's 2-minute offense or 2-minute defense you're playing, and you're expecting the other team to throw it. That's what teams do when they need to go down and get a score. And Baltimore has that dynamic weapon in Lamar Jackson, and the Bengals are really on their heels there. I'm not sure
maybe
how
not
much DJ would have been there, but he's going to be a huge lift. And it's the plays he makes, but it's also the plays he creates, because he eats up so much attention and it frees up the other guys. And let's not forget, I mean, they voted that guy a captain for a reason. He means a lot to this team. And you could see that even his first year here, when he got hurt in the 5th game, he suffered the quad injury. It was pretty apparent when he was down on the field that it was going to be a season ender. And you could just feel the life go out of this team, and the respect and the admiration he has for everybody in that locker room. I just seeing him out there, regardless of how he plays, it's going to give this team a huge lift to see him back. But I do expect to see him play like the old DJ Reader, and I do expect that to happen right away this Sunday.
Do you buy into the fact that he was playing at a level that was even higher than Aaron Donald? I mean, I believe it was Pro Football Focus that had him rated for whatever it was, first month of the year, higher than Aaron Donald. He was that good to start this season.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of different. I mean, he does have some pass rush ability to him, and he was rushing the passer really well. But it's just, I mean, Aaron Donald's one of the best of all time, and you throw in what DJ can do against the run as well. I think what was DJ? I think he was the 3rd highest graded PFF defensive tackle at that point of the injury. I'm not sure where Aaron Donald was. I didn't watch enough Rams film early to make that. I mean, it sounds crazy to say.
Jay, we're having this discussion and putting him in the conversation with Aaron Donald, to me, tells me what kind of value DJ Reader brings.
Mm-hmm. And it's not just guys on this team and the coaches on this team pumping him up. I mean, it's the coaches on the other team, and you read the stories when the opponent, they're getting ready to play, and they're all talking about DJ Reader and how good he is and what an impact he is. I'm surprised, because you hear that, and I'm surprised that he hasn't been to a Pro Bowl yet, because he clearly has everyone's respect in the league. It's just a matter of getting some fans on board. And if he can play in these final 8 games the way he played in those first 3 games, then maybe it finally happens for him this year.
Kevin Hubert, Drew Chrisman, who you got, and how's that story play out?
Well, it's going to be Chrisman, I feel, at some point, but not this week. I mean, if they were moving on, Hubert wouldn't have been here yesterday. They would have there was no point of having him come in for a 1-hour walkthrough. They would have just cut the ties. They had enough time last week over the bye week when they were evaluating everything to make the decision. So I think Hubert gets one more shot. Unless he has just a great game, if he has one bad punt, it follows the theme that we've seen. And I think they make the move. He's on the shortest of short leashes. But yeah, I think it's Hubert gets the call this week. It's not going to be some thing where they swap him, where they make Chrisman active and they put Hubert on the practice squad. If they're going to make the move, they have to make a clean break, and they can't have Hubert lingering, looking over Chrisman's shoulder the way Chrisman is right now, looking over Huber's. And I expect it to happen at some point this year, but just not Sunday. It's still going to be Hubert on Sunday.
And if they move forward with Drew Chrisman, it's for good. Like, this is not going to be volleyball back and forth, you don't think?
unless it just goes awful, because no one's picking up Kevin Huber, and he's a 5-minute drive from the stadium. So if something goes crazy
or injury,
or injury. So if they pick up the phone and call, he'd be crazy not to come back and have another shot at winning a ring and playing in his hometown and all those kind of things. I don't think there would be any hard feelings. 14 years working with Darren Simmons, there's just such crazy respect between those two, that if it wouldn't be a finality if they cut him, but it would take something really, really, really go wrong as far as Christmas performance or his health for Huber to come back.
Bengals go 5-3 in their final 8 games. That puts them exactly where they were last year, 10-7. If 3 of the 5 games that they win, let's say, are all divisional wins, I think they win the division.
I don't. I think Baltimore wins this division easy. They're playing well. That schedule is a cakewalk. I mean, I don't have it here in front of me, but I've looked at it, and they just, it would take a big collapse. We do this AFC North whip around where all 4 writers in the division, we ask 4 questions each week, and one of the ones last week was, is the division over? How much do you think Baltimore will win the division by if you think it is over? And I said they win it by at least 3 games. I don't see the Bengals winning enough games to make it competitive, and I don't see the Ravens losing enough games to stumble.
So just to go over the Ravens schedule, because I think everybody knows what the Bengals schedule is the rest of the way. The Ravens schedule is home game this weekend against Carolina.
Win.
Road game at Jacksonville.
Win.
Home game against Denver.
Win.
Road game at Pittsburgh.
Toss up.
Road game at Cleveland.
Win.
Home game against the Falcons on Christmas Eve is a win. I mean, even I am like, there's Atlanta will be wrapping their gifts unless the Falcons somehow are on the tail of Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and they last that long. That's kind of a wild card game to me, an X factor game to me, but at home in Baltimore Christmas Eve, that has Ravens all over it. Next week is New Year's Day. That is home against the Steelers. That's a win. And then Bengals at Paycor Stadium to finish out the season against the Bengals. It's going to be tough for the Bengals to pull this off. I will say this, I don't know what you thought of the Monday night game, Jay, the Commanders rising up and beating the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia. That serves as a reminder that anything indeed can happen any given Saturday in the NFL. I say that for the pun, for the viral tweet that went nuts on Sunday after Jeff Saturday put the Colts to a win in Las Vegas. Any given Saturday or Sunday, any team can rise up and have a great day. But that being said, I would say it looks pretty bleak unless the Bengals go on a 7-1 run to close out the season. And if that's the case, then the last game of the year is going to decide the division. That's the Bengals' hope, I guess.
Yeah, even that I'm not sure, because if they finish tied with the Ravens, the best they would be is 3-3 in the division. And I can't see the Ravens being worse than 4-2 in the division. So even if they split the head-to-head, the Ravens would get the tiebreaker. So the Bengals are actually going to have to finish ahead of the Ravens to win the division. And it sounds crazy the way I'm talking about it is being over, because it's a 1-game lead right now. But you look at that Ravens schedule and you look at how hard the Bengals is, and I'm with you. I think the Bengals at least go 5-3, and I did predict that they would sweep the AFC North on the second half of it going through the division. But they're going to have to win a road playoff game or a bunch of them, because I think they're going into the playoffs. If they go in, it's going to be as a wild card.
And to me, it's really going to come down to is the game on Christmas Eve for the Bengals in New England at my old home.
Yeah.
My old stomping grounds. That's going to be a critical game because I do think the Patriots have a tough schedule coming up. They have, I believe, the Bills twice, the Jets once, the Dolphins again. That's going to be a tough schedule for them. But the Patriots will be playing for their playoff lives. The Bengals will be playing for their playoff lives. That could be a epic Christmas Eve game at Gillette.
Yeah, because the Patriots have the Jets this week, and then they turn around and play on Thanksgiving, and then they do Thursday the following week, and they have a tough schedule
at Minnesota that Thanksgiving night.
Yes. I don't have any stats to back this up, but it feels to me when games fall on Christmas weekend that the road teams have an advantage, because it's just them together in a hotel focused on the game, whereas the home team has family and all these other things to worry about. So I do think that's if there is a good spot to have to go to New England and try to beat Bill Belichick, then maybe Christmas Eve is it.
What are you working on The Athletic? Anything you want to promote, Jay?
Not yet. We've got some few things under wraps, but I don't want to put them out there yet.
Understood.
But, we did just record our Joe Burrow sode, an entire episode dedicated to Joe Burrow and what he's been in the first half and what we expect him to be in the second half. And it turned out really, really interesting. Some of the numbers we dug up and talked to an old, only the hardest of Bengals fans are going to remember this name, J.T. O'Sullivan.
Yes,
is a former Bengals backup, and he has a quarterback school, and he's become one of those go-to guys that you can talk to about quarterbacks play. So he's on the podcast Conversation with Paul Daner, and
he was on the Carson Palmer teams, right?
Yeah. It was interesting. One of the things the most sacks in the first 9 games of a season, JT O'Sullivan had 32 and Joe Burrow had 32 his rookie year. And that's not the most. I believe it was 25th most in the league. But when I was digging up that number, I just thought it was ironic that those two guys had the exact same number.
By the way, nobody digs up numbers better than you do, Jay. You are the expert, and you're the presidential scholar in that category on our beat in our media workroom. I just want to throw that out there.
Well, I appreciate that. It's the nerd in me. I've loved numbers. When I was, you do those aptitude tests when you're in high school, and they tell you what you would be best to go into. And I think English was at the bottom of the list and math was at the top, but math, it bored me. I was good at it, but now I love it. I really do wish I would have taken some more math classes, because maybe I'd be working in analytics somewhere instead of just writing about it.
Well, the electrical engineer in me appreciates all of your analytical work.
Well,
Jay Morrison, he is a great writer covering the Cincinnati Bengals and the National Football League for The Athletic. Follow him on Twitter at JMorrisonATH, all one word. Bengals have a big game coming up, and we'll both be there in Pittsburgh covering it for our representative outlets. Jay for The Athletic and me for clnsmedia.com. Of course, follow me on YouTube at the JungleRoar podcast. Please click on the link below and leave me all your comments, good, bad, and indifferent. Download the JungleRoar podcast wherever you download your favorite podcasts. He is Jay Morrison. Thanks a lot, Jay, for joining me. My name is Mike Petralia, and thanks for watching this episode of the JungleRoar podcast.